peddle conspiracy theories in our event. That is not acceptable. Do not say that.
And then they use that to cloak their anti-Semitic leanings and their racist leanings. And it's pretty gross. Guys. And I'll say this. Now we're going to have a little come to Jesus moment.
I wish you would.
You don't have the luxury of the time that I grew up in, where nothing was online and we weren't tweeting and we weren't on Facebook and things like this weren't being filmed. You guys live in that reality. And you're young and you're not that experienced. He doesn't like being on camera. Upset and emotional.
He doesn't like being.
Years from now, you're going to regret.
Yeah, he's pissed.
You're going to regret.
He's fucking pissed.
How do you get past working for someone who originally contributed to shaming the Covington Catholic kids and by retweeting left-wing attacks, and call Jesus a Jewish rebel who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble?
What, you're telling me that my Jewish boss doesn't believe that Jesus is the Son of God? I'm scandalized by this. I have no idea. As a Christian, how do I justify working for someone who is not a Christian? I find that to be a total non sequitur.
Who blasphemed Christ? That's my main question.
Well, it's not blasphemy. Are you suggesting that everyone? Hold on a second. Are you suggesting that everyone who is not Christian is guilty of blasphemy?
You are a Christian, and you're working for someone who blasphemed Christ, Jesus Christ. He called him a Jewish rebel, just a Jewish rebel who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed just like other Jewish rebels did. And I'm a Christian, and I just don't see I couldn't see myself.
Okay. So you're not going to work for
anyone.
And then
originally retweeted left-wing attacks on the Covington Catholic kids. I'm Catholic.
Okay, just to clarify, you're not going to work for anyone who's not Christian, is what you're saying. That's your decision.
I'm not going to work for someone who publicly states to millions upon millions of people that Jewish was a Jewish rebel who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans.
Would you ever work for a non-Christian?
Not if they publicly state to millions upon millions of people. This was on Joe Rogan that Jesus was a Jewish rebel who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble. Yeah. This is what I'm saying.
I'll tell you what.
He said that to millions upon millions of people. This was on Joe Rogan.
When I get back to the studio, I'm going to talk to Ben and tell him you must be a Christian right now because that is unacceptable. I would definitely tell him.
Let me also clarify. Man. That's not what I'm saying.
Let me also.
I've worked for many non-Christians in the past. What I'm saying is.
Then let me tell you something. I'm going to talk now. Okay. Thank you for your question. If you have worked for any non-Christian, then you have worked for people who feel exactly that way about Jesus, because there are 7 billion people on earth. 5 billion of them are not Christian. All of those 5 billion believe that Jesus was a Jewish rebel or something else, or maybe something worse than that. So that shouldn't scandalize us, and the idea that we should...
I'm not in favor of government banning people who are adults. Children I'm in favor of banning, because now you're talking about somebody who's not capable of consent. Right? All of our laws are based on the ability of people to consent. If you're a child, you can't consent. So I'm very much in favor of banning gender transition for kids. I think that it's frankly evil. I think you're making decisions for children who are not capable of making decisions for themselves that are permanent and have long-lasting, significant, and severe impact. As far as adults, if you're 25 and you want to get a sex change surgery and you feel...
With that, within 5 years of gay marriage being approved, we have drag kids, drag queen story hour, adults dancing with children at pride parades naked, decriminalization of AIDS transmission, kids being chemically castrated by the state, men competing in women's events, and Desmond is Amazing going on Good Morning America. In Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, they've started to promote pictures with drag queens such as, what was her name? Lady MAGA? Yeah. Have you seen that?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. Lady MAGA?
Yeah, he was taking a picture with like a guy dressed as a woman.
Okay.
My question is, how long do you think it is before Turning Point USA or other conservative organizations start hosting their own conservative drag queen story hours? In other words, how long is it before corporate or conservative Inc., mainstream conservatism becomes effectively left-wing?
Okay. I can't speak to Turning Point USA or what their plans are. I have a feeling that drag shows probably aren't in their plans, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But in terms of, generally speaking, conservatives embracing this sort of thing, and what you're talking about is more than anything the abuse of children, the sexual abuse of children. In terms of conservatives embracing that, so-called conservatives embracing it, I would. It seems that the pattern is that conservatives generally will object to something, and then it happens anyway, and then within 10 years, most so-called conservatives are saying, it's okay. Right. And so I would say, generally speaking, I think that 10 years from now, probably there will be a lot of conservatives defending it, or at least saying that it's okay and we shouldn't interfere.
Focus on communications failures. I have to say I'm a little bit bewildered why you're so obsessed with an incident that is now 52 years old. If you have theories that are better than those of the American government, they've got operators standing by. Feel free to dial them and tell them about your 5-decade-old theories about a military incident from the 1967.
I plead the fifth. You appear to be a conservative. So my question for you. You claim that you're against identity politics. However, I find that extremely hypocritical, considering this event is called the Black Leadership Summit. You run events called the Jewish Leadership Summit, Latino Leadership Summit. We have people like Rob Smith saying, America's favorite gay black veteran conservative. Why have you not disavowed that and just called these events American Leadership Summit?
So I have a question for you. Would everyone agree that it's a fair question? And again, I love disagreement. That's why we're here. Thank you for being here. Does everyone agree that there's a unique black culture in America? Would you say that there's a black culture outside of the color of the skin, right? So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in a 2-parent household where the problems that we faced were not the problems that I'm hearing people in this room that have expressed. Are there unique problems in black America that is not affecting suburban America, right? So to first and foremost understand that culture, not skin color, but black culture has very specific needs and issues that need to be addressed under a very,
so to speak, without having such acrimony.
There should be acrimony with the KKK, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about the non-interventionists. This is
well, you just said David Duke.
He's not in. He hasn't been in the Klan for 40 years.
Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah.
Europe, they tend to say that they like white European ideals, not Western ideals. Western ideals would be a thing, right? Because you can read about Western ideals in books. White European ideals. I'm wondering exactly what they're talking about. They're not talking about Christian ideals. You can read about those in books too, right? Or Judeo-Christian ideals, which I talk about, right? Instead, they talk about white European ideals. I'm confused. What are white ideals? What do white ideals look like? Do white ideals look like, you know, like the professors at these universities who are overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly socialist? What do white ideals look like? How about European ideals, like the socialists over in various parts of Europe? Are you really happy with how Germany is being governed right now, are you? Like, what do European ideals look like to you? Do the white communists at Berkeley have these white European ideals? Race does not have ideals. It's just a melanin level. Okay? It's just a skin color or a place of origin. If you think it does, you are absolutely indistinguishable. You are identical to the identity politics left, to the intersectional left. Spoiler alert, the alt-right. The rootless transnational elite know that a tidal wave of white identity is coming, and they know that one...
And so the question shouldn't be, well, how do we make human beings perfect, like the left sometimes goes on this fool's errand to do. So the left believes something totally different, the radical left. They believe that anything that human beings do wrong is a byproduct of a system that has been built that makes human beings do things wrong, most specifically private property. The left believes because you're able, I know it's hilarious, right? No, it really is. The fact that you're able to own private property, they believe that that brings out the worst in people. So the left, if you come at it from this lens, you're like, wow, that actually kind of makes sense. The left is trying to create perfect people by demolishing the current system that we have. Okay, so but what's amazing about free enterprise capitalism is it forces you to be a good person. Now, are there bad people in the free market? Of course there are. And too many of those cheaters sometimes get away with it, but they get called out more times than not. However, to be rich and to be successful and to attain wealth, it's really hard to be a jerk over and over and over again. It actually requires for you to be decent. It requires you to tell the truth. It requires you to employ a lot of people and earn the trust of your employees. You know what's so amazing about a booming economy? Is that if a jerk tries to hire a bunch of people, people are like, I'm not going to work for you. I'm going to go work with somebody across the street. I don't have to work for you. You're always disrespectful to me. I don't like the way you talk to you don't talk to us. All of a sudden, that voluntarism allows people the opportunity for
oh my God, I can't wait for you guys to see what I just shot. It's going to be epic. You'll see in a couple days.
So a lot of these alt-righters have been showing up at various events, and they've been asking questions like, how does anal sex help us win the culture war? Really, this is the thing they've been asking. I mean, I'm not sure how them masturbating to pictures of frogs helps win the culture war either, but the purpose is to simultaneously pose as edgy and also to preserve your ability to say that you were joking. But the goal is really to suggest that if you oppose the alt-right, you're in favor of destroying the traditional family, which is ridiculous. Now, the actual answer, the non-snarky answer to this ridiculous question, is that criminalizing consensual activity without externalities is by definition losing the culture war. Okay, what helps America win the culture war is freedom and liberty and the government not being involved in your life. And if you, like me, believe that certain personal activity is a sin, you know how you win that culture war? By having people join your church, by engaging with your community, by teaching your children your values. That's the way you win a culture war. In fact, I'm bewildered by it. There's great irony in watching alt-righters claim they should use the commanding heights of government to cram down their viewpoints on others, while complaining that the left uses the commanding heights of government to cram down their viewpoints on others. You can't really whine about using the government to shut down your viewpoint when you plan on using the government to shut down everybody else's viewpoint. But many folks on the alt-right are busy playing true believers by suggesting that social conservatives like me, people who wrote entire books on the evils of pornography in American society, or people like David French, who spend their days fighting for religious freedom in court, are standing ardently in favor of Drag Queen Story Hour at the local library. Okay, newsflash. I think Drag Queen Story Hours border on child abuse. I think parents who expose young children to sexualized cross-dressing adults are doing something wrong and bad. I also think that in governmental terms, if you allow the library to decide which speech to ban, it's much more likely to ban the Bible than Drag Queen Story Hour. I'm for limited government because I do not trust the government to decide what kind of speech it wants to ban.
Just completely goes libtard on us with what we're seeing right now with what they did to Nick Fuentes, where they barred him and they silenced him and they fired their own fucking employee for being in a picture with Nick Fuentes. Charlie, you're crazy. He didn't say that, I said it.
Okay.
Fuck you, Charlie. Anyway,
yeah.
The point is, if we go by the left's rules,
right,
then they win.
Okay.
Because they're getting exactly what they want. We just can't do that. We're giving them exactly what they want.
I just want to make sure, because we do have a lot of people here, and that's why we have to split this up. So what's the question exactly?
The question is, how do we stop conservative from doing this? Because it feels like it's almost impossible.
How do we stop conservatives from becoming libtards?
Well, how to stop conservative from being fake conservatives and demonizing those of us who actually believe in free speech and standing up for people who want to speak freely.
Okay. Well, it's a pretty broad question. So I'm going to try and it's not that it's a hard one. It's that it's almost nonsensical. But
I agree with everything you say on life, marriage, and gender, and I agree with your points. But coming from an Italian Catholic perspective, I guess you can call me Grandpa Groiper. But I've been watching some of this. There seems to be a real point of contention between what I would call non-interventionists. In my generation, we were Ron Paul Republicans, or going back further, one of my historical heroes is Father Charles E. Coughlin. And on the other side, you have what I would call maybe very sincere but fanatical pro-Israel Zionists or neocons. And they support every war that comes down the pike, they seem to support. And so you have the new mouthpieces of the new neoconism, or not only do they support the Zionist wars, but they're not conservative traditional at all. They support just what you're referring to, the LGBTXYZ and the open borders. And one last point I want to ask you, do you agree with my characterization of this conflict between physical conservatives, Zionism versus non-interventionists, and which side are you on? And the second point, the great-grandfather of libertarianism, Murray Rothbard, who was a Jewish atheist, he actually, believe it or not, you look this up, he supported Dr. David Duke for president, and then Pat Buchanan. So I don't think there has to be such acrimony and such hatred. I think we're, as Catholics, as Christians, we could communicate with the other side, so to speak, without having such acrimony.
There should be acrimony with the KKK, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about the non-interventionists. This is
well, you just said David Duke.
He's not in. He hasn't been in the Klan for 40 years.
Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad he made that change to his life. To get to your question, though, about do I agree with your characterization of it being Zionist, so-called Zionist, I don't think that's how it breaks down at all. I don't agree with that characterization. And I'm not even sure how you work that out personally, because I agree that we have a problem with interventionist wars and we're trying to be policing the world and all that. I'm not on board with any of that, and I've been an outspoken critic of that. But if you look, for example, at Barack Obama, I don't know if you would call him a Zionist too, but he was...
I care about them. First, they claim that I hate Jesus. Okay, I'm a Jew. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't mean to be facetious about this, but, like, this is obvious that I don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. You see, like, I have a hat. It says the whole thing, like, truly. With that said, I'm really, really glad that Christians do. Like, really glad that Christians do. I mean actual Christians, not the fake Christians who quote Nietzsche but don't know anything about the Gospel of John. I mean the kind who go to church and seek God's grace and love their neighbors. I'm very, very happy that America is largely a Christian nation. I wish it were more so. I think American-style Christianity is one of the best things to ever happen to civilization. Ever. My best friend and business partner is a lay minister. I employ tons of Christians. I've given them the freedom and the platform to share their faith. I've written one of the best-selling conservative books of all time that basically calls for more conservatives to go back to... Another one they like, that I'm a grifter, right, that I make money. Welcome to America. We have lots of sponsors. I'm very grateful for my sponsors. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I offer my sponsors a way to reach my audience. I'm very proud of them. I think their products are good. That's why I talk about them. And if it makes me money at the same time, great. I'm out to make money. I like money. Congratulations.
I agree with everything you say on life, marriage, and gender, and I agree with your points. But coming from an Italian Catholic perspective, I guess you can call me Grandpa Groiper. But I've been watching some of this. There seems to be a real point of contention between what I would call non-interventionists. In my generation, we were Ron Paul Republicans, or going back further, one of my historical heroes is Father Charles E. Coughlin. And on the other side, you have what I would call maybe very sincere but fanatical pro-Israel Zionists or neocons, and they support every war that comes down the pike. They seem to support, and so you have the new mouthpieces of the new neoconism. Or not only do they support the Zionist wars, but they're not conservative traditional at all. They support just what you're referring to, the LGBTXYZ and the open borders. And one last point. I want to ask you. Do you agree with my characterization of this conflict between physical conservatives, Zionism versus non-interventionists, and which side are you on? And the second point, the great-grandfather of libertarianism, Murray Rothbard, who was a Jewish atheist, he actually, believe it or not, you look this up, he supported Dr. David Duke for president and then Pat Buchanan. So I don't think there has to be such acrimony and such hatred. I think we're, as Catholics, as Christians, we could communicate with the other side, so to speak, without having such acrimony.
There should be acrimony with the KKK, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about the non-interventionists. This is...
Well, you just said David Duke.
He hasn't been in the Klan for 40 years.
Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad he made that change to his life. To get to your question, though, about do I agree with your characterization of it being Zionist, so-called Zionist, I don't think that's how it breaks down at all. I don't agree with that characterization. And I'm not even sure how you work that out personally, because I agree that we have a problem with interventionist wars and we're trying to be policing the world and all that. I'm not on board with any of that, and I've been an outspoken critic of that. But if you look, for example, at Barack Obama, I don't know if you would call him a Zionist too, but he was...
Let's say, for example, that you're constantly talking about white civilization, a nonsensical term, because civilization is not defined by color, but by history and culture and philosophy.
My question is for Congressman Crenshaw. First of all, I want to thank you for your distinguished service to this country. Congressman, just this year, after a 2017 version of the law was blocked by a federal judge, Texas passed a law that still requires certain contractors to sign a pledge that they will not boycott Israel. The state of Florida has also passed a law outlawing the mere criticism of Israel. Representative Crenshaw, on May 9th of this year, similar legislation was even attempted at the federal level when the House Appropriations Committee sought to amend a routine government funding bill to allow federal agencies to compel contractors to promise not to boycott Israel as a requirement of maintaining their relationship with the U.S. government. Congressman, in spite of our unique and historic alliance, These laws are obvious, flagrant, and troubling violations of the First Amendment and free speech. Given that when you entered office, you swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, my question is this: will you honor your oath and denounce these laws here, now, and forever, or do you agree with Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott that the First Amendment should only apply to Americans who support Israel?
You're advocating for the First Amendment, or at least you're cloaking yourself in the First Amendment.
I wouldn't presume my intentions. I wouldn't presume my intentions.
Well, I will say this. I will presume your intentions. I will. Because I know who you guys are. And here's the problem with the BDS movement. When you create a movement,
I'm not advocating for the BDS movement.
Divest and sanction one Jewish state just because they are the one Jewish state, there is a deep problem with that. That is anti-Semitism manifest.
It's your right as an American.
I know every single person in this room loves America, and you know, I bet some of those liberals love America too. Maybe they just love it in a different way. And maybe what we're all here to do is to show them that it doesn't matter what color you are, and it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is, or your gender identity, or all of these different things that people try to separate us by. These things may not matter if you love America, because we can all come together in this room, and we have a national identity together because we are united in our love for America.
Thank you for coming out tonight. This is more directed at Charlie.
This means it's going to be an easy one then. You get the easy ones.
So I just have to take issue with the stance most right-wing pundits like yourself have, which I find hypocritical. Recently at a talk in Jerusalem, you made the claim that America isn't a people, it's just an idea. You also claimed that Israel isn't just an idea, it's a people. This had me thinking. You cherish Zionism and people like Bibi Netanyahu or Theodore Herzl, the founder of Zionism, people who are open ethnic nationalists, who care very deeply about maintaining a Jewish ethnic majority in Israel. How can you be that vocal? How can you be a vocal critic against any and all forms of European ethnic nationalism while holding them opinions?
Thank you for being here tonight. I expanded on those comments later in the video and beyond that, saying that America also has a beautiful history and is a place, and I expanded on that in a variety of ways. Not the first time I've gotten this question this week. It seems like it just keeps on coming back, and even tonight. Look, I'm a proud American, and I believe in the ideas that built America, and I'm also proud to stand with Israel, our greatest ally in the Middle East, and I want to apologize for that. I want to apologize for their history and the unfair amount of persecution that they're under from every direction imaginable. Israel is not perfect. They have their fair share of mistakes. However, considering that they are in a sea of totalitarianism, a democratic state where Arabs, Muslims, and Christians can visit their holy sites, can vote in democratic elections, and can all cooperatively serve in the Knesset is something that deserves appreciation, especially when it's in a region where the other neighboring countries are 600, 700, 800 years behind them. And I just find it puzzling at times, the amount of criticism that Israel gets, considering the amount of horror or human rights that actually happen in the Middle East. And so to build upon your original thing that you said, that I said in Jerusalem, I even expanded upon America, that of course we should be proud of all the amazing sacrifice that our country, the people before us in our country have went through to make us possible, American ideas, and implemented them in their country. And I think that's something that we should be very proud of. So thank you for being here tonight. I very much appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Mappin, and on behalf of my wife and myself, I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening. It's a rather interesting turnout for a dinner for 10, which is what this was originally planned to be. But of course, when people started to hear that Charlie and Candace were coming to town, it expanded significantly. And I'd very much like to thank Peter Southall, who has been extraordinary in sort of rallying the troops, I would say, and also our very good friends, Lord and Lady Plunkett, who have been extraordinary in their efforts to help
I have a question. I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can. Establishment conservatives like yourself hold that national health care for Americans is too expensive, immoral, and doesn't work. Yet the U.S. gives Israel, Central America, Africa, and other regions billions in foreign aid. In particular, Israel received $3.8 billion to subsidize its immoral, expensive health care system, while Americans are made bankrupt by health care costs and pay a far higher effective tax rates than Israelis. My question, therefore, why would white Americans send their taxpayer dollars to fund Israel's health care while our mothers fight cancer, our brothers die of opioid overdoses, and the news of a coming baby brings not joy and happiness, but grave concern over thousands and thousands in future medical bills? How is that America first?
Thank you for being here tonight. So what is the foreign aid we give Israel spent on?
Bombs for blowing up children. But also their health care system, their wall, which we don't have.
That's quite a bold, inaccurate way to depict it.
I'm having a little fun.
So I'll answer the question for you. The foreign aid we give Israel is spent on American defense manufacturers that employ Americans and is built on a joint alliance. It's not built on their domestic welfare programs. Let me finish. Okay. So you believe that Israel is immorally existing in the Middle East, or you said something of the sort?
I don't believe I said that.
Okay, you said, well then...
I said that we're financing their health care system, their public health care system, which by your moral code is immoral.
So we're not. We're actually in a joint partnership where we give them certain amounts of money only if they spend it on U.S. defense manufacturers. So Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, millions of Americans are employed by the very countries that we have a joint partnership alliance with Israel. Let me say something else. I appreciate you being here tonight. I get a lot of questions about Israel. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud freedom-loving patriot. I believe in America first. But I also believe in the sovereignty of Israel, and I also am so perplexed and puzzled by the amount of hatred that goes against the country that has half of the Jews in the entire world, the only democracy in the Middle East, the only place where Muslims, Christians, and Jews all represent in the same government in the Middle East, the only country in the Middle East that doesn't... If you graduate from a United States university with a skill, upon graduation of your diploma, we should staple a green card behind your diploma. Okay? If you have a skill and you've been educated in our country, I don't think it makes sense to export that person to go back to Korea or Sudan or wherever. So then all of a sudden we export the intellectual investment that we made within our own university. That doesn't make logical sense to me.
Look, folks, it makes absolutely no sense, by the way, that we send home 40,000 engineers and scientists who earn a PhD in our university every year, and we send them back home. We should be stapling a green card to each and every one of those degrees as they walk across the stage.
By the way, if someone gets an advanced degree, I want them to stay here, so I'd staple a green card to their diploma.
You may recall that when we did in 2005, 2006, our innovation agenda, we said right then and there, staple a green card.
Given that your interpretation of traditional conservative values stems from 1965 on immigration and 2015 on race, I'd like to know, how long do we have to wait until child drag shows are pushed as American traditional conservatism?
Let me answer. I'm going to answer that question. So I get a lot of crap, and I've been getting a lot of crap from people in this room about being a gay conservative. And let me be very clear right now. No, you're not. But okay, that's great. But let me address that.
He served in the United States military. That's what he conserved, my friend. How about he served in the military while you're a coward and you go to the front of the line. He went to Iraq to protect our freedoms while you go up talking about conserving our country.
Your freedoms when I was fighting in Iraq for you. How about that? Is that a good enough answer about what I conserve? So let me be clear, because I want to address what he's saying, because I think that there's a valid point in what he's saying, even though what he's saying is crap. So there's this idea that there's a lot of crap going on in the far, I call it the LGBT alphabet soup left, that myself as a gay conservative is like pushing back on. The child drag queen stuff is garbage, okay? The drag kid stuff is garbage. Trans kids is garbage, okay? And so I get crap from the right for being a quote-unquote fake conservative, and I get crap from the left when I stand up against that stuff and say that we need to calm that stuff down because it is not doing anything for America. As a matter of fact, I think that child drag queens and I think that trans kids, quote-unquote, are destructive to the fabric of this country. I absolutely believe that. So not to address a troll, but I need to say, as a gay conservative, myself and the Ricky Rebels of the world and the Scott Pressers of the world, we're the only ones in that community that are standing up against that crap and calling it for what it is. So if you don't think that you need us in the movement, these people on the left, the alphabet soup is going to do a lot of crazy stuff, and we need to pull them back in line, period. And that's why I'm doing it.
Sure. So I have a question. So from America First perspective, why do we give $3.8 billion to Israel, which is more aid than we've given to Africa, more aid than we've given to South America, and more aid than we've given to the Caribbean combined, which is home to 1 billion poor people, especially when they deliberately attacked the USS Liberty in the 1970s?
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event. That is not acceptable. Do not say that.
Okay, Dean Rusk disagrees with you, and he was the Secretary of State at the time, but that's fine. And then the second part is also, you have the Apollo incident in which they illegally stole weapons-grade uranium. The CIA has reports on this.
Anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic
No, I'm not
rhetoric.
anti-Israel. I'm just asking from America perspective because it's not in our interest. They act against our interest.
Remember the short question part?
Sure. I mean, how is it in our interest that we give this money to Israel?
All right, so it's required that they have to buy American weaponry. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, the only place where all three monotheistic religions are allowed to peacefully practice. It's the only country in the Middle East where all three monotheistic religions are represented in their government. It's the only place in the Middle East that has any appreciation for LGBT rights whatsoever. It's the only country in the Middle East that doesn't throw homosexuals off the top of buildings when they find them. It is the only partner that we have in the fight against radical Islamic terrorism. And the subtext of your narrative could be extrapolated to say, well, why on earth?
How you guys doing? Thanks for coming to New Hampshire today. My question is from Mr. Kirk. I was just going to say, why are you so obsessed with pushing homosexuality into the conservative movement when America is a Christian country based on family values? Maybe Mr. Paul come in at the end of that because he has said about the gay marriage question at the beginning.
Take exception with the word obsession. I'm not really sure where you would get that from, but I'm proud that I have some of the closest friends and some of our most productive and amazing spokespeople and employees for Turning Point USA are individuals that are gay, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with a conservative movement that embraces talented people that also happen to be gay.
Good afternoon. My question is regarding the state of conservatism in the 21st century. It appears like our base, our party, has been hijacked by neocons and libertarians that only pay lip service to evangelical Christians on the social issues and immigration. However, these conservatives only seem to deliver on securing funds for Israel, getting us involved in more wars, bringing in low-skilled labor to take away jobs from U.S. citizens, while also pushing for corporations to get tax cuts and to decide the wages of the American worker. What should we do regarding this crisis, or is this even a crisis to begin with?
So what should we do about the crisis of illegal immigration is basically your question.
Corporatism, regime change wars.
Okay, that was a lot that you're asking me to solve in 2 minutes here. Well, as far as immigration, I would say I'm 100% in favor of building the wall. I think the idea that we were going to build a 2,000-mile long wall across the entire border was always pretty silly. I'm not sure that anyone ever believed that was going to happen, but certainly we should be increasing the physical barriers because I think studies show that that does decrease the problem of illegal immigration, and we should be enforcing the laws that we have on the books. I think that's also a problem is we haven't been enforcing those laws. So hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I'm a little sick, so I'm sorry about my voice, but I have two quick questions, very quick. Do you believe in free speech? Absolutely.
Well, look, I believe every individual has freedom of speech, but also part of freedom of speech is you have the freedom to associate with who you want to associate with. You can say, I want to listen to certain things, I don't want to listen to certain things, as an individual. And I believe the solution to hate speech is more speech. As we're demonstrating tonight, we literally say if you disagree, you're allowed to go to the front of the line. I think we're practicing what we preach. Well, if you disagree, then go to the front of the line. You all disagree. Well, then, fight over it. Next one.
All
So that next question. Thank you. You got one question. Thank you. Thanks. One question.
So I am an American whose family has lived here for a long time. I had I think 5 generations ago, a grandfather served in the War of 1812. My grandfather served in World War II, and I just finished up my Army service over in Monterey.
Thank you for your service.
Now, all of my lineage is European. I think no one in this room would argue that this country, the pioneers, the grit, the imagination, the brilliance it took was of the European mind. It wasn't the Indian mind. It wasn't the Chinese mind. It wasn't the Japanese hand. It was European. Now,
I don't know what a Chinese mind is, I have to tell you, but I don't know what that is. I don't think minds...
Okay, I didn't... Okay, now my question is this. Japan has a right to stay Japan. China has a right to stay China, right? No one is trying to pick and plug Bangladeshi migrant workers, Indian migrant workers into China, into Japan, and expect them to stay Chinese, to stay Japanese. So my question is, without calling me racist, I don't think you would do that. Why is it wrong to want to preserve our heritage and keep the country that our ancestors founded European? Why? Why is that wrong? Where is the moral conundrum there?
Okay, can I answer your question? Yes. I think it's, in order to have a country, to have a people, there needs to be some unifying foundational thing, right? And in this country these days, I'm not sure what that unifying thing is, and that's a problem.
If you guys don't know, I recently left the alt-right, and I feel like it's my responsibility and duty to give a more honest take on the situation. This shooting was highly influenced by internet online meme culture. And I know, because I've been sucked into that same culture. I regret ever contributing anything to that culture, but I'm not going to pretend like this shooting is something that it wasn't. And while I didn't directly influence the shooter, we have to recognize what sort of meme culture did influence him. It was so obvious that this guy was radicalized by the alt-right and became a right-wing extremist.
Hi, Charlie. So I saw and enjoyed your debate at Politicon with Kyle Klinsky over the weekend. And you said during the debate that the free speech police are telling people that they can no longer say certain things. Yet, as you were saying that, you had actual police prevent someone from merely watching the debate. Nick Fuentes. And there was no evidence that he was going to be disruptive or break the rules. But now Nick has some pretty important views that I strongly disagree with. But you say socialism is the most evil and deadly ideology.
Somebody told me that the police did something. That wasn't my event this weekend. I'm not really sure what you're talking about. I'm getting all these messages that said I kicked somebody out. What do you mean?
Well, he was so there were multiple times when he went up to, he was in a line to take a picture with you, and then he was barred from taking a picture with you, and then he was barred specifically from your event. He was told that he could just.
Is this the internet troll? I'm confused who you're talking about.
Who are these people?
Who are you? I want to be sure that is this the internet troll that is the guy that believes in white ethno-nationalism or? Yes. Oh, okay. I just want to make sure, because there is a guy that infiltrated our booth at Politicon that security came up to us and they said we're not allowing this guy at the event. Maybe that's what you're talking about, because there's a guy that infiltrated our booth, and then the Politicon security, an event that I don't run, they came up to me and they said, this guy made a little disruption. But I want to clear this up, because I'm getting messages about something I'm not totally clear on.
So yeah, yeah. If you.
No, he's got a lot of fangirls in here tonight, huh?
I mean, you debate socialists and you say socialism is the most deadly ideology. Why not? If you're saying that socialism is the most dangerous, why not debate someone like Nick and get his bad ideas out of
Well,
the
I think
culture.
I've been debating a lot of his bad ideas here tonight quite well. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
So, in the wake of the student debt crisis, stagnant wage growth across all education levels in all fields, liberal arts, STEM, how is regurgitating this far-left talking point of stapling green cards to diplomas America first? How is this any different than chain migration funded by taxpayers through the NSF, DOE, DOD? Those funds go to...
Yeah, I'm happy to elaborate on it. So I said at a speech last week that if someone graduates from a four-year college, they should have a green card stapled to their diploma. Let me elaborate on that further. I don't think it makes sense as America First to invest our tax dollars in foreign nationals that come to our own publicly funded universities and then say go back and compete against us in Korea, Japan, or Southeast Asia. Well, so you just said they're competing against us here. Well, actually, if they're employed by American companies or they're entrepreneurs, there's evidence to show that they actually embrace our American cultural identity and they come and they immerse into our country. So I'll give you a great example. So I'll give you a great example. This same sort of skepticism, the same sort of hostility was given towards Asians in the 1940s and 50s. Asians have been one of the most productive, one of the most amazing communities, least likely to commit crimes, most contributing communities to our country, including Indian Americans, people from Southeast Asia. And so I will say this. Look, I'll nuance it even further. And a green card is not citizenship. I did not say citizenship. There's a huge difference there. But if you graduate from Stanford, MIT, Yale, and you're able to find a job that needs to be filled by an American employer, then yes, I do believe you should be given temporary residency to be able to fill that job. And guess what? You pay taxes. You're within the system. I'll say this. I believe in lowering the amount of legal immigrants. I believe in eliminating chain migration. I believe in ending the visa lottery, making English the official language of the United States, building the wall, enforcing our laws, and also allowing ICE to go into our inner cities to go after lawbreakers, as well as ending sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are one of the worst things that we allow to happen in our country, where lawlessness happens every single day. You don't want him in the conservative movement. I just want to be very clear. Let's just be... Rob.
So you don't want me in the movement?
No. Hold on a sec. I want to be very clear. Hold on a sec. You're bringing some very charged language. I'm going to try to calm down the temperature in the room, so I can try to rationally understand an irrational position. Why should we Let me finish. Let me finish. So, I'm a Christian. I believe the Bible is the greatest book ever to exist in the history of the world. And I believe Rob Smith has decency and dignity as an individual in the United States of America. Hold on a second. We're not a theocracy. We never have been.
And you know what? And wait a minute. Let me hop in here. Hold on, because I'm in it. He's addressing me. The thing that I don't understand. Well, I'm addressing you. How about that?
You don't even have the courage to address the gay man on stage.
So the problem that I have with, as somebody that is a gay Christian, and this is the problem that I have, because my relationship with God and coming back into the church over the past year and a half is one of the greatest gifts that has been given to me in terms of being in this movement. So my question to everybody who tries to say that, oh, you shouldn't be, Christian because you're gay, why are you trying to turn people away from God? So if you love God, and Christianity is so right, because I do love God, so why would you be trying to turn me away? Why would you be trying to turn me away from God?
So we're going to get
to another thing, and one thing that I don't do,
and
one thing that I don't do is that there is no man that is of this earth that is going to tell me what God has for me and how much God loves me.
Charlie, you often express the view that America is a nation of ideas, not of blood and soil. But traditional American ideas have very little purchase these days in the state of California, which, due to immigration-induced demographic shift, has been irreversibly transformed from a reliably Republican state to a Democratic stronghold. Taking this in combination with the fact that the least desirable immigrants are also those who are most likely to lie about their beliefs in America, how can we prevent America from suffering California's fate without taking into consideration blood and soil in our immigration policy?
Thank you for being here tonight. So, look, I think one of California's biggest issues is the fact that we have a porous southern border, and we've allowed 15 to 20 million people to border jump into our country and cut in line, essentially illegally enter into our country. That's number one. Number two, I think we should get rid of this ridiculous visa lottery and chain migration system that we have in our immigration. And kind of close the loop on that. I mean, I think currently you look at the trends. In the 1990s, the amount of legal immigrants that we brought into the country spiked dramatically. And the amount of low-skilled workers that we brought into America correlated with it. And I think that's pretty troubling because if we look at our country, every country has capacity. We happen to be enormously wealthy and very, very generous. But we also have capacity. We have a capacity that we'll reach as well. And so I'm not sure if we have much to disagree with on this, except in the sense that our ideas are the greatest ideas ever to exist in the history of the world, and we've created that country around those core set of ideas. But a nation is defined by its borders. And if we have a porous southern border and we allow it to continue, then we'll have an uncontrolled problem of child sex trafficking, opioids coming into our country, and lawlessness. So,
Charlie, I speak for a not insignificant coalition of students in your organization that believes that your movement is utterly toothless. There was a young man, I think a week or two ago, that slapped you around pretty good on immigration. And so I guess my perspective is this. When we look at somewhere like Texas where immigrants are coming in and they are voting something like 70-30 for Democrats, they're utterly anti-gun. This is Pew Research, and utterly against free speech. I don't really think it matters how many young leadership, whatever conferences you hold. Demographics are going to catch up to you and you're going to lose. This is a culture where you're going to get routed in.
It doesn't look like it.
Wait, you talk super fast. I think what you were saying is I'm wrong about immigration, basically, is what you're saying. So, okay, effectively. Okay, so I'll make my stance perfectly clear. We should build a wall. I've said that time and time again. We should restrict illegal immigration. I don't even describe illegal border crossing as immigration because it cheapens people like Kimberly's family. That is border jumping and line cutting. Immigration is applying at your embassy and getting peaceful entry into the country. I said something so explicitly clear. There should be no limitation on EB-5 visas. You know what an EB-5 visa is? No, you don't. EB-5 visa means that you come with $1 million cash and you have to create 10 jobs. Right now, we limit the amount of EB-5 visas in our country, which is one of the most backwards, stupid things we could possibly do. If you have money and you want to do good, you should be given entry into the United States and saying, welcome to our country.
And that's a merit-based system.
And this is what the president has fought for. Some people have intentionally misrepresented my comments by saying that somehow I don't understand the threat of border jumping or line crossing into line cutting into this country, which is just not true whatsoever. I will say this though, that I don't believe the conservative movement, and some people believe this, should become an anti-legal immigration posture. And I'm afraid you hold that position. I'm sorry? Pick you? That's fine. Happy to. You're wrong. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. Because if you believe in market economics, you want as many ambitious, aspirational, ethical, and entrepreneurial people to come into your country as possible. That's the position I hold.
So I'm of the right. And my biggest thing with the right is I know that there's a debate going on in the right, and I'm sure you're aware of this, with immigration. And I think that this is really why Trump got elected. And I think at the heart of it, it goes to the DQ, the demographics question. And I think at the end of the day, you could debate about numbers, you could bring up GDP, but do you think, and could you give me an example of another nation where the native demographic has been replaced and put into a minority and the nation has retained its ethos, retains its nation state status?
So thank you for being here. Let me just tell you what I believe on immigration, first and foremost. I believe we should get rid of chain migration. I think we should get rid of the visa lottery. I think that we need to have a super secure southern border, and we have a zero-tolerance policy of any sort of illegal crossings coming into our country. I also believe that, we have to get – thank you. I believe that we have to start to get tough about visa overstays and also people that have been allowed to break the law and come into our country and disenfranchise other people that come here legally. Right. Now, with that being said, I think that the current numbers that we have with spike in legal immigration, I think there's some very interesting statistical analysis that 1 million people a year might be too many people to actually be able to bring into our country effectively. I've said this, and some people have sent some feedback on it, and that's perfectly fine. I believe that there are people around the world that are entrepreneurial, that come with great ideas, a merit-based system that should be able to legally come into this country, that they are a benefit to our country. Now, to your question about the replacement of the nativists, I'll push back a little bit, and I'll push back respectfully, of course, because that's not what it means to be an American, and maybe you agree or not agree. I don't believe inherent in what it means to be an American is a race or an ethnicity or a religion. I believe it's a set of ideas. It's a set of ideas around the idea of e pluribus unum and liberty and in God we trust. Now, if people are coming into this country that are at odds with those ideas, that does not have anything to do with race or ethnicity. That's ideology, two totally, completely different things. I will say this, though, is that there's been an amazing track record for America in the sense that we have been able to show that people can come from all over the world and be...
Their dear leader told them to say that before they asked any questions.
No, I actually mean that. I actually mean that. So my question is, I want to know how you feel about the U.S. government giving Israel over $3 billion in foreign aid per year, which is more than what we give to third world countries such as Ethiopia, even though Israel is able to afford socialist policies for its citizens, such as free health care and subsidized college education. Why isn't Israel expected to cut back social programs to make room in their budget for their military, like the United States has to, instead of relying on welfare from a country that has homeless veterans and citizens who can't afford trips to the doctor? So why aren't we putting Americans and America first?
Again, I'll answer your question seriously, and then I'll go into what's really motivating the question, because that's important for everybody to know also. Oh, you guys don't want to hear that truth, do you? That gets under your skin, doesn't it? Actually, I do, because I see what you crazies post online. You forget that the cat's out of the bag. You're not hiding the ball very well.
Okay.
All right. So why do we give aid to Israel? I think it's an important question. We give just over $3 billion a year to Israel. Why do we do that? Well, they're the one democracy in the Middle East. They're our ally. Also, most of that money has to be spent on American goods, just to be clear. So we benefit pretty greatly from that. We also benefit from the technological exchanges that we have with Israel. For instance, some of the things that have saved my friends' lives. Certain tourniquets, Skedcos, that's how we carry our wounded off the battlefield. Those are all Israeli developments. I benefit personally from those things, especially given what I've seen on the battlefield. So there is extreme benefit in doing so. You have to understand something about scale also when you're talking about Israel. They're a country that's about the size of the city I'm from, Houston. Okay, so they have to spend a huge amount of their GDP on defense already. It's not unreasonable to think that they do need extra aid in order to fend off the many, many, many people around the Middle East who want them dead, not the least of which is Iran, which has continued to seek nuclear weapons. By the way, Iran just kicked out an IAEA inspector.
You stated that you didn't care about people's concern about the browning of America, which, in my opinion, is essentially not caring about the issue of illegal immigration.
No, that's not right. Sorry, go ahead.
and yet you support Israel's ethno-state by stating that Judaism must be preserved, since elements like this uphold Jewish national identity and culture, which I don't mind. But the fact that you don't care about the demographic change in America is kind of concerning, because we're all Americans here, right?
Okay.
And the question is, do you want our nation to end up like a third world country such as Brazil, or a disaster like Germany and Sweden right now?
Okay, so Brazil's a second world country. Technically, it's a developing country. It's not like a fully underdeveloped country or a failed state.
Then why is there a far-right candidate winning at the moment?
I mean, if you want to argue Brazilian politics, I agree that Brazilian politics has been dominated by the far left, but I'm not sure that that's of tremendous interest. Let's talk about the first question. Okay, when I say I don't care about the browning of America, what I mean is I don't care about ethnicity. It doesn't make any difference to me. The only thing that makes a difference to me is the ideals of the people who are coming across the border. Now, when people say I am pro-illegal immigration, I do not know where in the hell they would possibly get that. This seems to, when people repeatedly say stuff like this, and I see this meme all the time, oh, Shapiro cares about a Jewish ethno-state, but he doesn't care about illegal immigration. I was further right than Donald Trump was in the last election cycle on illegal immigration. I opposed the 2006 amnesty deal. I opposed the 2010 amnesty deal. I've consistently been anti-illegal immigration. I supported the wall. This is just a lie. The idea that I'm pro-illegal immigration is not true in the slightest. What I have said is that we ought to deal with how to stop the influx of illegal immigration and then deal with the people who are here and separate off the two issues. And when it comes to the folks who are here illegally, what we should do is we should assess those folks in the same way we assess everybody else coming into the country. Are they going to add economically to the country and culturally to the country? Are they going to make the country a better place? Or are they going to make the country a worse place? And that involves assimilation. Now, as far as the idea of the Jewish ethno-state, I don't care very much about, at all actually, about Jewish ethnicity. Jewish ethnicity makes no...
If you think that I'm not the type of black man that's not going to address white supremacist behavior and white supremacist language, you got the wrong one. Because let me tell you something, when somebody comes up to you talking about a white ethno-state, then I think that that is white supremacist behavior. Like, I don't know. Like, I may be crazy. I may be going off the rails here, and maybe I'm not being super tolerant of white supremacy. But I think that that's pretty much what it is. But it's crazy to me that people that call themselves black Republicans or black conservatives or whatever would align themselves with legitimate white supremacists, okay, to quote unquote own somebody just because, you know, to own me just because I'm gay. So, you know, it's like I'm black and I'm going to side with white supremacists to own the gays. You look stupid. You look crazy.
Hi guys, welcome to our channel, The House of Damage. I'm Ariel Damage. And I'm Zane Damage. And we're just your two typical, average, everyday, run-of-the-mill drag queens. I'm your non-binary, conservative, California, born and raised, free range, free trade, vegan, USDA approved drag queen. Check. And I'm your typical Russian Jewish, Trump-loving, atheist, conservative, immigrant, living for it, drag queen. So obviously, I'm a Russian bot. So you guys, we talk about all kinds of things on our channel. From LGBTQ rights and freedom. Overall, there's 74 countries allowing some kind of discrimination against the queer community. We talk about philosophy and spirituality and self-growth. A lot of us go through time period in our life and we don't know what we're doing. We even talk about astrology. I'm a Cancer. And I'm a Virgo. Throughout history, people have turned towards astrology for guidance, such as Benjamin Franklin, J.P. Morgan, Nancy Reagan, George Washington, Carl Jung. We get political! According to many sources, she has deep ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, which the Obama administration supported. Wow!
I'm not an extremist, I'm not a bigot, I don't use slurs, I don't harass people, I don't attack people. I have officially been permanently banned from Twitter. In the last couple of days, I've gotten no less than 3 totally contradictory, totally different, totally factually inaccurate reasons from them. Yet no explanation, no evidence, no nothing. Reason number 1. Evading a permanent suspension. The only problem is I've never had a permanent suspension. Is reason number 2. Managing multiple accounts for abusive purposes. I don't have multiple accounts. This is the only Twitter account I have. This is the only Twitter account I have ever had. Reason number 3, abuse and targeted harassment. Ooh, this one actually had a tweet attached to it. Well, I responded to some blue checkmark who was attacking this person, and I responded by saying this. Oh my god, she loves her children? Burn the witch! There it is. This is the tweet that they are saying caused me to be permanently banned from Twitter. Instead of harassing somebody, I was defending them. Well, if you have to search this hard for proof that somebody is a terrible person who needs to be silenced, maybe you're just wrong about them. This is the lowest I've probably felt since I've been doing this. It just feels kind of hopeless. It feels like these people just have unlimited power, and I'm not gonna lie, it's really discouraging. When they remove you from Twitter, they are removing your voice from the discussion. Not only can it happen to you, it will. Make no mistake, this is a systemic effort to remove every influential and persuasive voice that opposes the radical left from the discussion. Look back at 2016 and think of all of the people who were very influential in exposing the left. Where are they now? Almost all of them are gone. They've been made to disappear, and pretty soon there will be no one left. They are coming after the center-right, and then they will go after the center, then they will go after the center-left, and then what's left? They think that they can stop any new voices who oppose the left from gaining any sort of traction. Logical center-right views will continue spreading like wildfire because they make sense to people. You can try to shut me up, but I'm not going.
Hello. So my name is Patrick Casey. I'm an American nationalist and America First patriot. And thanks, guys. So, and despite all of that, despite my ardent support for the president and his policies, I was actually kicked out of CPAC earlier this year.
But I didn't kick you out of this event.
No, I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to blame you.
Just
I'm not
making
gonna blame,
sure.
Yeah. You're very defensive here. I get that. As was my good friend Nicholas Shea Fuentes, whom I believe you were just discussing up there. But look, I'm not going to blame you for that.
I just want to make sure.
I've got a question here.
Is that the troll that keeps tweeting about?
He's not a troll. He's a very intelligent guy who has a lot to say. He's somewhat of a troll. But
well, he seems to be getting a lot of you guys to say stuff for him tonight. So.
I don't debate trolls.
I think we've been debating them all night.
Right, so I'm just citing CPAC's decision to remove American nationalists from their conference. I'm not blaming you for that. I'm moving it into something.
I don't run CPAC either.
Right, and I just said that I'm not blaming you. I've said that 3 times. So, but you do run TPUSA, and TPUSA did remove its relationship with Ashley St. Clair, who all she really did was take a picture with Nick Fuentes. She was in the same room. So my question to you, Charlie, is as someone who, purports to be pro-debate, free speech, and, the exchange of ideas, do you support blackballing people based on having controversial opinions or being even in the same room when a photograph is taken with someone who has controversial opinions? And the second part of that question is, if the answer is no, will you debate me on immigration, identity, and demographics?
Well, so, first of all, I mean this respectfully. I have no idea who you are. The other thing, that was a private matter. Ashley's a good person. We handled it privately. That's all I'm going to say about that. And finally, I just want to make a broader statement. I want to make a broader statement. My stance on Israel, I'm not going to back away on it. My stance on immigration is a mainstream position. And I think it's really incredible because the amount of people that have been here tonight that have shown hatred towards Rob, that have been shown hatred towards his ideas is pretty incredible. And so I really don't know who you are, and the fact you're getting as upset as you are.
Hey, you guys, who likes Cardi B? Cardi B?
Question. What a racist question that was. So I got a quick and fun, lighthearted question for you, Charlie. So I know you gave a speech in Jerusalem earlier this year.
Yes, I did.
Were there any awesome, fun dance parties that you guys had afterwards? Because I heard that Israelis are some of the best dancers in the world. If you guys don't believe me, just Google dancing Israelis. It's insane how good their dance moves are. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Israel's a beautiful country, a great country, too.
It is. They're our greatest ally.
Correct. Thanks for being here tonight. Next question. Thank you for being here tonight. Next question.